Thank you everyone for joining. I'm Sarah Steinberger, the Planning Commissioner and Chair of this SPRC for the Roslyn RCA site redevelopment. I do have a prepared opening remarks that we need to read. Many of them, most of them hinge on the unusual pandemic circumstances that we're in, so please bear with me while I get through those. Welcome to the February 11th, 2021 Site Plan Review Committee meeting. For the safety of our committee members, county staff, and participating community members, we are holding a virtual meeting today. All participants with us are joining remotely. We are legally authorized to hold this virtual meeting based on the governor's executive orders, legislation adopted by the VA General Assembly, and the County Board's Continuity of Operations Ordinance adopted in March 2020. Before we begin, I'd like to orient everyone to our new virtual environment and cover a few specifics about how today's meeting will run. Today's meeting is available to stream from the county website via Microsoft Teams link. There's also a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. If commission members, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please connect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For everyone joining us via Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. When called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. If you're dialing in by phone, please press star asterisk 6 to unmute. The meeting chat is active for participants who need technical assistance only. The meeting chat should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony periods. When it is time for open discussion, commissioners, please raise your hand using the hand raise function, also in your command bar. And then when you've been called upon, turn on your video feed and unmute your microphone. Sorry, once you've been recognized, you may unmute. Once you've completed speaking, please turn off your video feed and your microphone. Regarding our public speakers, you'll be called upon to speak at an assigned time. Speakers will have 2 minutes to comment. A speaking timer will be displayed on the screen. If you're dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide an audible cue when 30 seconds are remaining. You will be muted when your time has concluded. Okay. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Freedom of Information Act requirements. Having said that, if there are no questions on that general list of instructions and information, I will review our agenda. So we've already had a virtual engagement session, which I know many people have participated through the web.
The book right there.
Sorry, is someone unmuted?
I just did it 2 seconds ago.
Could folks in the back, could you all please mute yourselves? If you have a technical concern, please reference that in the chat. Thank you. We've had the virtual engagement session, and hopefully you've all had a chance to already watch the video presentations on the site page from the county staff, and from the applicant. Tonight's agenda, we'll be going through land use and zoning, site design and architecture, transportation, open space, construction, implementation, and community benefits. So with that said, I am going to turn this over to the applicant. If there's anything you'd like to say to kind of with regards to the recorded presentation, and then staff will have a chance to speak for a moment as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Steinberger, and good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Painter. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Walsh Colucci. Our firm is working with Jefferson Apartment Group on this application. If you've been to the project page on the county's website, you'll see, as Commissioner Steinberger said, we've posted 2 introductory meetings in anticipation of the online engagement session. And we also had a video that answered some of the key comments that we received during that session. We have worked collaboratively with staff over the past several months. We've been identifying issues, responding to citizen comment, and having, I would say, very good discussions with surrounding community groups. And we really do appreciate the feedback, and we've taken those comments to heart. The building has really been designed from the outset as a gateway site into Roslyn. Its scale, its massing, its architecture really is intended to complete the existing dominant visual pattern and feeling of consistent spacing as you approach and experience Roslyn coming in from the Key Bridge. Our entire project team is here to comment or answer questions. And I think at this time, Jeff, Priya, or Shalom, if you all are prepared, I'd like to turn it over to our project architect, Shalom Baranis, if now's the appropriate time, just to sort of give a quick update or overview.
That's fine. One quick note for those of you who are not the applicant, because that's the only person who should have their video on right now. If other folks could turn off their videos. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. I'm Shalom Baranis, working with a team on the project from my firm, Shalom Baranis Associates. I want to just make a very brief presentation touching on the 4 topics you see here. Some of these have been refined somewhat since we published the 2 videos. And others, I just want to add a little bit of information to. If we could go to the next one, Jeff, please. Thank you. On the left, you see an image of the south wing of our building that was in the 2 videos that we published. And we made some changes to the elevations, primarily having to do with relocations and reconfiguration of the balconies on the facade, on all 4 facades of the building. And you see the revisions in the rendering on the right. So, rather than stacking the vertical, for example, the balconies vertically on the corner, as you see on the left, on the right, you can see we've developed them more in a collage-like fashion. Next, please. And, one of the reasons we did this is we wanted to develop a bit more of a contrast between the north wing and the south wing of the building. And we felt this was one way to accomplish that. Next one, please. And then here's just finally one more view of that as you look at it from the Key Bridge side, looking south. Okay, and then the next issue I wanted to address is the penthouse of the building. On the left-hand, in the left-hand diagram, you see that again on the south wing, which is the left darker portion of the building, where the swimming pool is, no changes there. That has remained the same. But on the rest of the roof, which extends, approximately 2/3 of the length of the site, we reconfigured all of our equipment. We moved some of the equipment around. We created some wells that go down into the lower space. And all of that enabled us to lower the overall penthouse by 10 feet across its entire length. Next, please. So here in this image, everything you see in white at the top of the building there, including the bridge that spans over the sky window, is now 10 feet lower than it was in the videos that we published previously. Next, please. I also just want to make a comment because this issue has come up a lot about the 2 stories of parking we have above the retail. As you can see, we are bringing the primary facade materials all the way down here. So we're not trying to save money here by going to a less expensive facade material. But also, in all our renderings, we've been showing these decorative metal screens, which we do intend to incorporate into the project. But now we're also in discussions considering the possibility of working with an artist to infill some of these panels, between the vertical piers, with some graphics that would be developed by an artist in collaboration with us. And, we're particularly focused on the elevation you see on the left, which is the elevation of the building that you see as you come across Key Bridge. Next, please. And the next topic I just wanted to address has to do with the public realm at the ground level around the site. So, these existing photographs, I just wanted to show these to, again, remind you all how narrow the streets on the east side and the west side, North Lynn and North Moore Street, on the east side and the west side of our project are. The current width of the plinth of the existing building, cantilevers over the sidewalk. And basically that existing plinth is 112 feet wide. we are going to narrow that portion of the building in our new project down to 89 feet. So it's going to go 112 down to 89, and that will considerably improve the sunlight and daylight coming down on both the North Lynn Street and North Moore Street. They'll just feel much more generous and I think be more pleasant streets to be on. Next, please. So here in blue on the right, we are showing the footprint of our proposed building. And then below that in orange is the footprint of the existing building. And this diagram just illustrates that we are, in fact, making our new building narrower. There'll be more room for planting, for sidewalks, for all sorts of amenities there. Next, please. And we are continuing to focus on the retail. The upper left with all those little red triangles, we are designing the base of the building so that any one of those red triangles can turn into an entrance for a retailer. I mean, obviously, we won't be using all of them at any given time, but we're building an enormous flexibility in terms of configuration of the retail, just because we're so concerned about ensuring its success. The other thing we did is if you look at the rendering on the lower right, um, at each one of these little red triangles, in the lower right, you can see that we recessed the glass slightly. So that becomes a potential location for a retail door. It also creates a little bit of a 90-degree glass corner for the retailers to display their goods. All of this is being done in an effort to enliven the retail in the public realm as much as possible. Next, please. And certainly, beyond the face of our building, between the face of our building and the curb, we're studying all of those conditions very carefully. There are laybys, there are driveways, straight curbs, and we are developing just different, very unique, very specific landscape conditions, such as you see here in these precedents, in order to address all of those different conditions. The larger image on the left with the red ribbon bench is an idea that we're developing for the south side, for the north side of our building, which is directly across from Gateway Park. Next, please. And this is the final image. Again, looking at the building from the south, looking north. And what you're doing here is you're looking north along North Moore Street. And this is, of course, is where parking is, parking entrance is, loading. And I just wanted to show you this to indicate that even on this facade, with all of the servicing elements of the building, we are taking great care to propose all of those entrances very carefully, and then turn the corner both the north end and the south end of this elevation with retail. So that's it, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shalom. Commissioner Steinberger, I'll turn it back over to you or to Ms. Walentish, I guess, for the next piece.
Thank you very much. Ms. Walentish, does the county have anything to say by way of introduction at this stage? And again, one last reminder for folks, if you're not presently speaking or presenting, please turn off your cameras. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chrissy Walentish with the Department of Community Planning, Housing, and Development. I'm joined tonight by Dennis Sellen with the Department of Environmental Services. We're here tonight to help guide the discussion, answer any questions, and provide any additional info on the project that that might come up or might be needed during the discussion tonight. I don't have too much of a presentation to give right now. We did provide a pre-recorded presentation that's currently on the project webpage that is hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review, but that answers questions that were discussed during the online engagement session that was held last month. And we crafted tonight's agenda, which I will pull up, to reflect most of the topics where we received a lot of comments, and also to guide the SPRC discussion where we think we'd like more input from the SPRC group and the public on some of these issues. So I have the agenda up tonight. Otherwise, we're happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to a great discussion and hearing what people think about the project. Thank you.
I was on mute. Sorry, guys. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. So in terms of how I'd like to proceed this evening, we do have the agenda with approximate time framing for that as well. So the first topic I'd like to address is land use and zoning. Again, the topic is with the SPRC members at the time. There will be time for public comment at the end. I will make sure that we reserve time for that. So do any members of the SPRC at this time wish to be recognized for any comments as related to land use and zoning? If you do, either raise your hand if that function's working, or you can turn your camera on for a moment to let us know that way as well. Commissioner Guerin, I'm not seeing anyone. Are you?
No, I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay, excellent. Let's move on to site design and architecture. I think this might have a little more interest off the bat. We definitely had some comments on this and during the public, the virtual engagement session. There were many comments on site design and architecture specifically. So within the context of site design and architecture, we've talked about the retail space, the the architecture itself, any accessibility issues. I think this would be a good time to address that topic as well. Would anyone like to be recognized on this topic? Okay, Ms. Ciotti? You can turn your camera on if you are willing. Rosemary, Ms. Ciotti, you may be on mute. Is there a way to tell?
She's unmuted, but I can't hear her either.
Correct. Ms. Ciotti, we seem to be having auditory difficulty hearing you. Oh,
yes, we can hear you now.
There
Okay,
you are.
so my question is, I can't see the retail, so help me out. Do you expect any steps, any place, are all the entrances going to be at street level without two forms of entrance, one for ramps, one for steps?
Yes, we will make them all accessible.
Yeah,
as
that's
the
not quite the
retailers need it.
question. Will they all only have one means of egress, an entrance?
Oh, well, it depends on the size of the retailer. Until we identify who they are individually, we really don't know. But we've made the design flexible enough to accommodate multiple entrances to a retailer should they need them.
I'm going to want to be on the record as saying that the main entrance to any one retailer should have only one method of entrance to be used by everybody. So that would be designated as the main entrance.
Okay, that is typically what we would do.
Okay, great. And the accessibility, I don't know if you want to talk about that now. There's going to be on-site affordable.
Are we talking about housing affordability?
Yes.
So yeah,
I think that would be under community benefits, so I don't want to get too off track on that.
Completely understand.
Huh?
I completely understand. So thank you. My thing was the entrance to retail and making sure that the main entrance to each retail has one singular way for everybody to enter and exit, and not two separate things.
Thank you. And so I think Commissioner Guerin.
Thank you. I want to second Commissioner Ciotti's points. We really stress universal design in these projects, and we really don't want to make anyone feel like they have to use a separate entrance if there's a way to design that in. I had a separate question, and that is something I've heard from members of the neighborhood. This looks like a big super block now, and I understand there were earlier iterations that showed ways to cut through the site at the ground level. What are the options now? Can you walk us through what that looks like?
Sure.
Thanks.
When we started to study the site, we did, we pay a lot of attention to the sector plan guidelines, which do call for a cut through the center of the block for servicing primarily. So we did study that, and you can see in this drawing here what the grades are across the site there. They're approximately 8.5% across the middle of the site, and that is too steep for trucks to maneuver in and out of a loading dock. It's considered beyond safe, and it's not recommended by transportation guidelines. So we had to consider a different scheme, which is the one we are presenting here, which shows the service entrances along North Moore Street as opposed through a service alley which cuts through the middle of the block. I do want to point out that we had this exact same problem that we discussed in public hearings years ago on the Monday property project that hasn't been built yet on Wilson. There, the sector plan also called for an east-west service alley. And as we studied it, we found that there was really just no way for trucks to maneuver there either. And we developed a scheme that's somewhat similar to this and did not cut through the center of the block.
Thank you. I appreciate that there was a focus on loading access cutting through the block. I guess I'm concerned because the block looks enormous, and if there was a way for neighborhood residents to cut through the block, not necessarily loading vehicles. How might a neighbor cut through, or do they have to go all the way around?
They would have to go all the way around because of the way the ramps are situated parallel to in the north-south direction, parallel to North Lynn Street, for example, and parallel to North Moore. There is really no opportunity for a pedestrian to cut across the block east-west.
I'm sorry, are you referring to the ramps of the parking garage?
Yes.
The above ground parking.
For the parking garage, for the parking.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. It looks like Ms. Prell has some comments. Ms. Prell, you can turn on your
unmute myself. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
I wanted just to carry on with what we were just speaking about. Is there any way, as they are doing at the Holiday Inn site, to put a passageway from one side of from North Moore to Lynn Street that goes through the whole structure that pedestrians and neighbors could use?
Jeff, can you pull up the ground floor plan, please? Oh, I guess, here we go. I was just pointing out in the previous discussion that we have the ramps running north-south parallel to North Moore Street. And you can see them here. It's the gray area with the two arrows on it at the bottom of the floor plan. And then directly adjacent to that, we have the loading area. So it's really not possible to develop a north-south pedestrian cut through the middle of the block here.
And just to build onto that too, in looking at this as well, because we have the two components of the building, the two wings of the building shared by the same common lobby entrance, Shalom, it would be kind of difficult to punch through that and be able to have a secure lobby for residents as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Andrew. You can see the elevators. Jeff, if you could just point to the two sets of elevators. There's one there, there's another one on the right, and they're serviced by one lobby entrance, basically.
So I'm wondering if there's another maybe creative option for getting some of that flow. I understand it might not go directly through the middle of the building, which maybe would then become, you know, less desirable or less useful for community and neighborhood residents. But is there a way that some sort of a path through like part of the retail? Is there an option? Because I'm sympathetic to the fact that this does make the block very I'm not sure exactly what word I want, a little impassable for residents in the community.
Yeah, Jeff, can we go back to the ground floor plan, please? It's the image you just had up a minute ago. Yeah, here we go. You know, certainly if, for example, the retail level were occupied either on the north end or the south end by a single retailer, it would then be possible, kind of contrary to what some of the original speakers were interested in, where they said, you know, they just wanted to have one entrance to the retail. But if you wanted a cut through, it would be possible for a retailer, for example, to have an entrance both on 19th Street and another one on North Lynn, and pedestrians could then cut through the block that way. And they would be able to do that either at the north end of the building or the south end of the building.
Yeah, and then as I was asking the question, I realized that that would go counter to some of the prior commentary and with regards to equal access, you know, one entrance exit, as we were talking about. Although from an accessibility standpoint, if there was sort of that flow, is there that concern if you had kind of an entrance and exit? And again, understanding it would have to be one retailer with sort of a large footprint in the space.
Yeah, I mean, both entrances on the east and the west in that situation could be designed to be accessible, fully accessible. This is a very challenging block, given how narrow it is and how we have to be able to fit trucks and loading ramps and garage ramps into this particular dimension that we have.
And Shalom, just on that side too, I mean, you talked about the narrowness of the site. I mean, it's probably the most narrow block in all of Roslyn, but the length of the block as well is, you know, when we think about a huge city block, the length of the block is I think pretty comparable to like Central Place immediately to the south, as far as like the, you know, the length of that entire building. So even though this is a full city block, it's still not the longest block, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's comparable to other buildings that you would find in Roslyn, and on those blocks in which those buildings sit, there is, like in the 18th Street corridor, there is that passageway through as well.
Okay, Commissioner Gearing, your hand is raised. Is that from before or new comment?
It is a new comment. So I know this kind of gets at the next part of the agenda, but when I first asked about the cutting through of the super block, just to make it easier for the neighbors to get through it as the whole community gets built up, I'm not conflating this with the universal design issue, but you'd said that it had to do with the way that the above ground parking is oriented. Are we sure we need all of that above ground parking? The ratio is much higher than what's required for the site.
Sean, do you want me to start off with the parking ratio, I guess, issue?
Sure, go ahead.
So just by way of background, I think we've got 290 spaces, and you know, we've tried to size the garage to accommodate the anticipated market demand here. And I think the goal from Jefferson Apartment Group's perspective is to really right size that garage so that it is on one hand adequate to meet the market demand, but on the other hand, not provide extra parking that incentivizes people to drive. And I think when we were laying things out and Jefferson Apartment Group was looking at it, and Matt, I don't want to put words in your mouth at all, so please feel free to chime in. But my understanding was that these rates were in line with the county policies for the properties that are proximate to Metro Rail, and certainly in line, if not less than the other projects that have been approved even recently within proximity to the site. I think a lot of the other projects are in, at 0.77 to 0.90 spaces per unit, and we're down at a 0.625 ratio. So I just, from a ratio perspective, just wanted to mention that. And we can get into it if you like it, Commissioner Guerin, about the reasons why we have the above grade parking or why we can't go deeper, if you like. But I just wanted to mention that as far as the ratio goes, that on one hand, we're trying to thread a needle of meeting market demand. On the other hand, recognizing the fact that, we are proximate to Metro. And some of the other comments that we received, it was interesting in the different community groups we met with. We met with North Roslyn Civic Association and North Highland Civic Association, and there were differing opinions about how much parking should be provided here, concerns about overflow parking on adjacent streets and things like that. And then another group was interested in reducing parking wherever possible. So we've tried to strike the balance. And again, relative to the other projects that have been approved recently, I think ours is among the lowest, if not the lowest.
Andrew, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Painter. That is helpful, and we have run into that before with developments in Roslyn. We get mixed comments from the community in terms of somewhat more parking and somewhat less. But could I just ask staff to let us know? And if Sarah, if you want to wait, but since we've started to talk about the parking, I guess I thought that the ratio seemed high, but perhaps I could just get a definitive interpretation from staff on that. Thanks.
Let's hold off on that for one second. I did want to kind of move off of site design and into architecture. If no other kind of comments from committee members on that topic, I will take chair's prerogative and say, with regards to the architecture of the building, I personally really like it. I'm excited with where this is going, and I think it adds something to the aesthetic of the space. So I wanted to give that as a positive comment, that I have enjoyed seeing that the evolution of that building, and I'm excited for that aspect. If no other comments on site design and architecture, I think we are smoothly moving into transportation, and why don't we pick up with parking ratio, which is where we had been a moment ago. Staff, do you want to respond to Commissioner Guerin?
Well, I was just going to add on to the previous comments there on the parking ratio. We're basing our parking ratio on demand and other buildings that we operate in Arlington, and so the ratio that we're designing this building at right now is what we feel comfortable with, that we need to meet market demand. But it is worth noting that for the above grade parking, our floor plates are flat, other than the speed ramps that lead up to them. And so there is the potential to convert those to another use in the future if parking demand decreases as our transportation trends continue. So I just wanted to point that out. We are designing to demand, and that may not necessarily be the same thing as parking ratio guidance. So thank you.
Staff, did you want to respond on the parking ratio, and then we have a couple other hands raised from committee members.
This is Dennis Sellen with DES, and my comment on the parking is that, as many of you are aware, in 2017, the county board issued guidance that somewhat relaxes the parking requirement. It doesn't relax the requirements, but it relaxes the ability of developers to provide residential parking in multifamily areas and multifamily buildings in the metro corridors. So in this area of Roslyn, a developer could provide somewhere around 0.2 or 0.3 spaces per unit. This developer is providing approximately 0.625, which is somewhat conservative. I think that they showed a matrix in which they illustrate that they are around the middle of the road for developments in Roslyn. So essentially, they are within the requirements, they are within the guidelines. They could go lower and they could go higher. we would certainly accept a lower ratio. And we have been accepting lower ratios. I think the lowest that I have seen, and it's in a current site plan up in Courthouse, is 0.38. So it's definitely what market are they trying to appeal to, given the proximity to Metro, the high amount of goods and services, the walkability of the neighborhood, the ability to, you're very walkable to Georgetown, et cetera. Are you trying to appeal to a walkable neighborhood? Are you trying to appeal to folks that do have a vehicle? It's entirely up to the developer. However, they are within the guidance as it currently exists. I also do want to point out one thing on something that was previously mentioned. This block measures 400 feet long from the center line of Lee Highway to the center line of 19th Street. That is not an excessive length for urban streets, and particularly for Rosslyn.
I appreciate that comparison point. I think that that may not change the community's feelings on what feels like a longer stretch of block when you've got sort of large buildings covering a greater area. So I appreciate that 500 feet is not, you know, some sort of longer super block, but it may not feel that way in sort of the ground level walking. Sorry, I just wanted to make that point. I just wanted to clarify with regards to the parking ratios that you mentioned. And I understand this is sort of in the middle of what we're seeing in Rosslyn ratio-wise, but that does include developments that were built a much longer time ago, right?
It does. It does, and it also includes some that were approved within the past year. So they have developments of varying timeframes.
Okay. So we do have some other hands raised from committee members. So Commissioner Siegel.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Steinberger. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I'm happy about your chart. We had seen charts and averages that included parking in Crystal City, which I never thought was an appropriate comparable. And I'm happy to see that you're 0.625 because the last building we approved in Rosslyn was, as you point out, Ames Center 0.72. I'm also happy to see that the above grade parking, you designed it so that it could be reused in some way for some other use. It's very interesting to look at this collection of ratios. I mean, one's instinct is that you're so near a metro. It's such a major transit point. That why would we need that much parking with respect to the residential parking study, which I think Mr. Sellen was referring to in terms of the range of what's possible. But to me, it looks like some progress. I did just want to point out that I guess you don't have Central Place up here, but I do know that they were approved at 0.85, but I had been talking a year or so ago to the developer there, and I think they're actually parked at 0.75, and there is some sharing because they're an office building and residential, so there can be that reuse. I recognize, I guess I'm on the side of pushing these ratios down, but I do think it's tricky. Commissioner Steinberger, I did have a question about the panels, the art panels. Let me just ask the question so I know where we can discuss it. would that qualify as the art on site? Ms. Walentish, can you talk about that, or is that a community benefit? If it is, we can talk about it when we get there.
I had intended for that to be covered in community benefits.
Okay,
it's on my
good.
cheat sheet agenda.
And
Very
happy
good.
to answer when we get there.
Okay. And I guess one more exhibit would I think be helpful with respect to the permeability of the site for pedestrian access. Could we get an exhibit that shows this building in context of the current street network, maybe 500 feet around, so that we can see those of us who don't live in Washington, Roslyn, and don't have those desire lines sort of mapped out. We could see what the routes are, what the pedestrian routes are, what they feel like. Could we possibly get that from the developer, do you think?
I think we do have a drawing that shows that. Jeff, can you pull up one of the site plans that shows the larger context? Here we go. This is a lot more than 500 feet. We could
right,
possibly enlarge this for you.
Right. I was thinking sort of enlarge the smaller, a quarter mile, maybe enlarge that. I guess you could do that on the spot, couldn't you?
There it is, the quarter mile.
Okay, presto. Take time to sort of, I would just recommend that commissioners maybe who might not be as familiar with the desire lines there and the walking might just study that a little bit. Maybe it would put to rest some issues about permeability. Maybe not. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. So thanks so much.
Sure.
I might go a step further and say that, well, I think this is, and I appreciate that you pulled this up kind of on the spot based on the comments and feedback we're hearing live. Maybe for next time we could see a view with kind of maybe some air. It's a little hard for me to kind of tell with all the same kind of color palette what some of those walking paths are. Again, I'm looking at this on a smaller screen because I've got, the agenda and some other stuff going on. So, but perhaps for next time, something that sort of was really geared towards that site walkability for the neighborhood would be appreciated.
Okay, certainly we'll do that.
Thank you. I'm going to call on Ms. Prell and then Mr. Slatt.
Hello, I have several comments. First, I wanted to say, going on with Jane's comment about the art, one of the things is this building is very near Cliff Garton's corridor of light, which is supposed to be an important part of the entrance into Arlington. I think it might be interesting if they could find some way to make the parking areas screening somehow reflect that, or to amplify on that. It would be a way of continuing the corridor of light, which was the original plan for it. But I really wanted to talk about two other things. One, I find that the new building changes that you have done look dark and gloomy and fairly oppressive to me. It's very dark. I don't know if you're planning on using that deep of a gray, but it really was kind of spooky looking, I thought. I did not see that as an improvement. And the third is, I am one from the North Roslyn Civic Association, so our view on parking is very much different than other areas. People in this area do need cars. Some of us are elderly, and some of us are not nimble. We are not going to scooter or bicycle. I am not going to carry my groceries back on my back. I use a car for grocery shopping, for Costco, for doctors. If someone wants to come to my house for dinner and they're coming from Montgomery County, they are not going to be using Metro. I think you have to understand this is a residential community and not just a business community. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Prell. Mr. Slatt?
Great, thank you very much. And just to clarify, we're doing all transportation questions are open right now, right?
Yes, I imagine you're getting at the bike lanes portion of it. So I would like to, if other folks have bike lanes conversation, we got a lot of public feedback about that in the engagement session. This is the opportunity. I'd sort of like to spend the rest of the transportation time really honing in on this bicycle issue to keep us moving. So you're the perfect person to kick that off.
Well, I'm going to start on parking, and then I will roll into bike lane. So I did just want to associate myself with those who would support a lower parking ratio here. I think people, if you have a low enough parking ratio, people will self-select into the building who are interested in living a car-free lifestyle. And we would love to have those people. I mean, we'd love to have anybody here, but we'd especially love car-free lifestyle people here in Roslyn. And then I just would like to say, as I do, I think to all developers at this point, when you are trying to back up your parking ratio, I would love to see parking utilization information that you have rather than parking ratio information. Any of us can look up parking ratios that have been approved recently in the area, but what we don't have as a commission is, are we actually filling those garages on those existing developments? So that would be appreciated. And then jumping into 19th Street bike lanes. So the applicant and staff are proposing normal bike lanes on 19th Street, which is an upgrade from what's there now, which is no bike lanes at all. But there was a lot of public comment, including mine, that we really need to be getting to protected bike lanes on 19th Street. I just wanted to mention, the Roslyn sector plan calls eventually for a connection to the Mount Vernon Trail at the far east end of 19th Street. I think that's going to be a demand creator. And staff's response in the comment matrix says that the normal bike lanes on 19th Street is consistent with the 2019 update of the bike element of the MTP. I would disagree with that statement. Reading straight from the 2019 bike element, it says provide protected or buffered bicycle lanes on roadways with speed limits of 30 miles per hour or greater, and all roadways with daily traffic volumes of 6,000 vehicles per day or greater. And while I can't find the MMTIA for this development, the latest VDOT shows, I believe, 8,500 vehicles per day on this stretch of 19th Street. So I would say normal bike lanes are not consistent with the bike element of the MTP here. I have a couple more things, but I did want to give either the applicant or staff a chance to chime in here if they would like to before I keep rolling.
Commissioner Steinberg, I guess I'd defer to staff first.
Sure, staff, please.
Hi, this is staff, aka Dennis. Mr. Slatt, thank you. And for all of those who commented on the 19th Street bike lanes. So you are correct in pointing out that today there are no bicycle facilities on 19th Street. The 2015 sector plan and the 2019 Core of Roslyn study and the 2019 MTP update to the master transportation plan all call for some sort of bicycle facility on 19th Street. The specific references to 19th Street do not specify the type of bicycle facility to be provided on 19th Street. There is a policy statement in the MTP about the type of bicycle facility to be provided. However, the specific statement in the MTP for bike lanes on 19th Street is to provide a bike lane. And when a protected bike lane is called out for specific projects, it is called out. So for 19th Street, it was not called out for a protected bike lane. Now, I don't want to quibble with you. When we can find space for a higher level of protection, we are going to do it. We have certainly heard the comments from you and from others for a higher level of protection on 19th Street. We and the applicant are working to see what we can provide in addition to what is being provided in the current iteration of this proposal for 19th Street that would give that higher level of protection that is being sought. I cannot promise you that we're going to get to the place that you want us to be with this project, and it would only be for this block between North Lynn and North Moore Street. We are looking, and I'm speaking now for DES staff, for something that would carry this beyond this block, because whatever we do provide, DES would probably need to carry this beyond in the east and west direction, given that this would need to then be part of a larger network. So we're having that conversation internally, both as part of this project and as part of a larger, can DES then carry this through? And I know that you're specifically interested in the connection to the Mount Vernon Trail in the eastbound direction. So we are looking at what could be provided that's better than what's there today. And so we've heard you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did just want to, I understand, more space is required, quote unquote, more space, and that's consistent with the Core of Roslyn final report, which the early plans for Core of Roslyn called for protected bike lanes on 19th Street, and that got kind of pulled back over the course of the process because, reallocating space, it was causing some traffic backups for cars. So it did say, 19th Street protected bike lanes, they found not to be feasible, quote, until additional space can be integrated into the street cross section through redevelopment. I just want to point out, I think this is our only shot at integrating additional space into the street cross section through redevelopment, given how new the new building is across the street. And just so I want to make sure I'm understanding here properly, reading through the staff report, am I correct that something like 23,000 square feet of current county right-of-way is supposed to be vacated as part of what's currently planned here to become part of the applicant's site?
So the county right-of-way that's being vacated, Chris, are those internal roadways that are not on 19th Street. The internal roadways are on Lynn Street, they're adjacent to Lynn Street and they're adjacent to Lee Highway. So 19th Street is, well, okay, there's proposed vacations right there. So there is county right-of-way, and thank you for sharing that. But by and large, the vast majority of county right-of-way that is being vacated is adjacent to Lynn Street and to Lee Highway. So, frankly, we would probably be looking at taking additional sidewalk from 19th Street in order to be able to provide something greater than what we have.
I just find it disappointing when the county is giving up 23,000 square feet of its space for this development that the developer can't find some of that space to give back on 19th, moving things around.
Dennis, this is John from Bowman. Can I just jump in for 1 second here on the vacation question?
Sure.
Just to be clear, actually, if you look at this, is a great image. If you look at it, the green sliver there, Mr. Slatt, that goes along 19th Street, that's actually not going to be vacated. It's not taken from the county. That's actually being dedicated to the county, and we're physically moving that curb on 19th Street, the northern curb of 19th Street, about 2.5 feet now, with the 2 6-foot lanes. So as Dennis mentioned, we're trying to kind of figure out some way to kind of fit all this stuff in and make it work a little bit better. But as it is right now, we'd be slightly offset. We're slightly offsetting the curve a little bit to the north, so it's not a smooth transition exactly from the eastern portion of 19th Street as you cross Lynn Street to the north, to the west. But we are in fact, dedicating that green area, and that's the site that of the entire property. The dedication is actually occurring on 19th Street, as a matter of fact. But as Dennis said, we're looking at some options, and we're not totally done yet. So we need a little more time, and we're sort of working through some things.
Great. I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to reiterate that, for the next meeting that we have, I think that to the extent any progress has been made on this topic, that would be something we would like to hear more on. With regard to the bike lane, and as we did see in the public comments, it was a very popular topic. So if there are no other comments, I'm not seeing any on this particular topic, I'd like to move to open space. Oh, is there one hand raised? Mr. Rapetsky? And can you say what organization you're representing?
I have my hand raised, but my name is Timothy Effio.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at someone. I'm so sorry. Apologies on that. I was reading the wrong part of the screen. That's what I get for trying to do two things at once. Mr. Effio, and which group are you with? Apologies.
The Climate Change and the Climate Change, Energy and Environment Commission. I'm the vice chair for that commission.
Oh, wonderful. And yes, please.
Is it appropriate to talk about electric vehicle installations in the transportation section of the meeting?
I think it would be.
Can we get some comment on the plans for that, please, from the applicants?
Yeah, sure. This is Andrew Painter again, and I think I'd defer to our representative, I guess Mike Babcock there from Sustainable Building Partners. But we are programming or including both EV ready facilities and EV chargers within the building. So, Mike, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all.
Yeah, no, great question. And we obviously know where the market's going, and as a matter of practice, the development community is looking to build towards that, right? Not overdo it, but find that right blend of current parking needs, future parking needs, and also the wave of electrical vehicles we're anticipating. So one of the things we're exploring, obviously, we're going to hit our floor as part of our LEED commitment at a gold level. But we are looking to potentially install more than that floor day one, actually, from a percentage perspective, as well as increased ability infrastructure to expand that to a specific percentage. And while this project is subject to the existing community energy plan, we have looked at it from the current perspective of the new plan coming in, and we're looking to potentially include electrical vehicles that are consistent with that new standard in terms of day one charging stations, as well as day future ability to expand once that demand increases. So while we're still working that out, we are looking at more than that floor percentage that you would see that you would need for, say, a LEED gold building.
Okay, but no numbers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Matt can jump into, but in terms of our percentages, we are looking at potentially going to 4% with an expansion to potentially 15%. And I think it's just a function of, we're still working that out, but that is above and beyond the minimum requirements. Matt?
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Yes, as Mike mentioned, we are looking at doing 4% day one with the ability to expand to 15% at some point in the future to make sure that we are meeting that EV demand. And one of the things that we just wrapped up is studying our electrical capacity to make sure that we can accommodate both that 4% and that future 15%. And it looks like that is going to be the case, and it is something that we are considering seriously. We also want this to be a green building, an environmentally friendly building, aside from the density bonus that we're getting. Again, we are going to go above and beyond the minimum for LEED Gold.
Yeah, very good. It's important to note that it is consistent. While, like I said, the old plan with the future plan, basically effectively doubling that day one charging capacity, in addition to increasing the expansion capacity, which I think is really great for the project.
And that's something I believe Matt and Mike we've had internal discussions on as far as how it relates to our community benefits package, which we're starting to negotiate with staff on. So
exactly,
it's kind of in the ether right now, but we hope to be able to hone in on that and report back next month.
And this is Chrissy with the county. I'll just clarify too, when Mike is referring to the policy there for the new and the old, that's the green building incentive policy that our green building staff has prepared. That was just updated and adopted by the county board in December. So this project is grandfathered, and there are the older requirements are a bit more lenient. The new requirements are a little more strict. So when he says they are looking at the newer requirements, that would be going above and beyond than what they're required to do because they are grandfathered under the old policy. So just clarification on that.
Thank you, Ms. Wantish. That's very helpful clarification. And I would think that to the extent you're able to look at the new guidance, I think that would be a wonderful thing, and the community would support that. And as you said, the market's going there anyway, so why not get on that horse, so to speak?
Yeah, we've been working with city staff to look at everything overall and all the different layers of the sustainability package as well. So EV is just kind of an anecdote of the level of things that the developer and the design team is reviewing right now. So.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, very good. No, thanks for that. I'm actually very pleased to hear that you also took a look at your electrical demands in the out years to make sure you had the right infrastructure in place for that. I will say just a general comment that it seems we're developing a view in the commission that the adoptions of EV in Arlington is actually going to be a little bit quicker than nationally. And so potentially 4 and 15 might be a little bit low if you're using the national view on EV demand, but we can probably talk about that at another time.
Yeah, and there's also the balance in parking in general too, right? So I agree, and we'll keep that discussion going. And I think it's a tough thing to predict, right? You don't want to overdo it, you don't want to underdo it. You're trying to find that expandable ability, right, where that sweet spot is.
So I do want to keep us moving. Ms. Prell, I see your hand is raised. Do you have another comment? And then we're going to move to the next topic.
Yes, since we didn't just stay to bicycles on transportation. I did not, our community I walk that block daily almost. The backing up of trucks from the loading dock onto that very narrow North Moore is a considerable concern to our neighborhood and people who walk there. But what I wanted to ask about is I didn't know if there was on-site places for, I don't remember the acronym, but it's parcel trucks, your FedEx, your Amazon, your Uber Eats, or even also the Lyft Uber locations for pickups and drop-offs. Are those provisions made for those in the current plans?
So I'll turn it over to, I don't know who the subject matter expert would be from our side, but my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sellen, is that the Department of Environmental Services Operations Group manages curbside utilization and will assign those spaces accordingly. On North Lynn Street, we have programmed a very large lay-by lane near the main building entrance, which we hope it's specifically intended to be used for those short-term standing Uber drop-offs, FedEx trucks, and that sort of thing. On the North Moore Street side, there are a series of unmetered spaces there that might provide another relief area as well. So,
Mr. Painter, you are exactly correct. Those spaces will be assigned at the time of probably certificate of occupancy by our operations folks. And many will probably be assigned for those exact purposes that Ms. Prell is identifying.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to move to open space at this point. Any comments on open space? I see Mr. Foster.
Yes, please. Do you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, fine. I'm speaking as a rep of the Parks and Recreation Commission. we're obviously concerned with open space. I don't know whether this is going to fall under community benefits or open space, but at any rate, 3 of us on the planning commission submitted concerns to the January input about Gateway Park, the adjacent Gateway Park on the north side of the project. And what we got back, I'm looking under open space, we got back connections to Gateway Park, both in staff response and applicant response. And I just wanted to put my finger up in the air just to emphasize that we see that improvements to Gateway Park itself, as opposed to just the connection to Gateway Park from elsewhere on the property, would be a benefit for all of the residents in the area as well as the businesses. And our chairman posited in comments that he made in writing in January that the Holiday Inn site with no explicit on-site open space plan, there was $5 million contributed by the applicant toward the development of a park, toward the development of the park. So I just wanted to get that up there and clarify that we're not just talking about connections to Gateway Park, but actually, hopefully, Gateway Park itself. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foster. I would like to emphasize that we did see several comments in the public engagement session that addressed that specific point. Looking not just for better connections to the park, but also what could be done to sort of, improving the park. Were there any plans for that? Was there going to fall under a community benefit? And so I think that's certainly something that Parks and Rec is not alone in wanting more information and to kind of emphasize that point. I will now allow the applicant to respond.
Yeah, and I might turn it over to Shalom Baranis as well. But before I do that, I'd just say, just as a fundamental imperative to this project, I think our entire design team certainly understands the importance of Gateway Park, both the future residents of this building and Roslyn generally. This building helps frame that park, and clearly the sector plan calls for buildings to create a sensitive gateway edge in terms of how it relates to the park and its connectivity. Mr. Foster, you're absolutely correct. In our response, we did talk about pedestrian connectivity and how it was recently enhanced through improvements at Lee Highway and North Lynn Street. Our building has tried architecturally to adopt the language of Gateway Park, to activate it with people and uses and eyes on the street. One of our other responses that you may have seen too is just sort of what we're specifically doing along Lee Highway, in particular providing a substantial planting buffer there to serve as sort of a vegetative barrier with plants and that sort of thing, but also to help frame Lee Highway and convert the typology of that road from sort of just a pass-through street into more of an urban boulevard, which is sort of shown here. As part of our community benefits discussion, we are internally talking about that, a potential open space contribution similar, in style to what the Holiday Inn site did. The numbers will vary and that sort of thing, but that's all part of the community benefits package that, again, it's on our radar. We just have not been able to get there just yet. But Shalom, did you want to talk to, the edge, at least on our side of Lee Highway, and how we're relating to the park?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. I think you've mentioned the main points. We do have a wide right-of-way there at the north end of our building, and we have an enhanced wide green strip from the curb to the edge of the sidewalk, and that's the area in which we're incorporating trees, low plantings, as well as these built-in benches. But the other point I wanted to mention is that we and you started to touch on this, Andrew. We have developed the overall aesthetic of the lower portion of our building, basically to visually extend the sense of greenery that that starts with Gateway Park. As you come across the bridge there, you see the park, and then our thought was to keep your eye moving north, both along both streets, and have elements of green, both above the parking, at the curb level or across from the retail, and then also as you step up the building inside the sky window that we have there. So, we did visualize all of that as being in spirit and aesthetically, visually, an extension of Gateway Park.
And this is Chrissy. I'll just chime in on the county's behalf here. So I echo what Andrew and Shalom said about the efforts they're making with that sensitive edge transition and providing that landscape buffer on Lee Highway, and also that the sector plan really doesn't provide specific open space guidance for the RCA site redevelopment. It is right there adjacent to Gateway Park, and also a proposed esplanade that is supposed to be going through the site across the street on the Gateway Park side in the future. So we want to be very cognizant of that, and I think that landscape buffer does help recognize that, and they are very aware of that. So apart from what the sector plan suggests for open space, I think we would rely heavily in this case on the community benefits package and looking at ways to either provide contributions toward the improvements of Gateway Park or connections as we discussed. So I think as we do continue to look into the community benefits, we can expect more information and details to come out on exactly where the money would be going to and things like that. So stay tuned.
Thank you. Mr. Foster, your hand is still raised, but I believe that is from your original comment. If you have further comments, let me know, or please lower your hand. Okay, thank you. With regards to open space, any other comments? We kind of called out, we talked about Gateway Park significantly, other kind of on-site amenities, I guess as that relates to open space in terms of, biophilic elements, if there's commentary on that, or maybe the applicant could kind of speak to that just a little bit to kind of orient folks to the, any biophilic attributes.
Yeah, and I think this is Andrew again. I think I would defer again to Shalom or Mike, but just to let everyone know, the way that the site has been designed, especially with the sky window through, the whole concept of this is to let light and air into the interior of the building, so it's not just a solid wall, which is a pretty unique architectural feature. Interior to the building, obviously there will be amenity spaces for residents, rooftop, terraces and uses for those residents. As well. So Mike or Shalom, did you want to talk about amenities and biophilic elements?
Well, I would just re-emphasize the point you just made, Andrew, that I think one of the most important aspect of biophilic, quite honestly, that we don't focus on enough is natural light into the units, natural light into interior spaces. And this footprint we've developed that's divided in half and separated by the sky window really gives us more perimeter per square foot of unit than really in any other building that we've done that has multifamily residential in it. And so many of these units do have views out to green space, up as high as the 7th floor. They can walk out of their units into an area that has a grove of trees, which I think is very unusual for this type of a development.
Yeah, and I would echo, when you talk about biophilic, its core concept, it's the effect it has on the mind, body, and spirit. The fractals, right? When you see sun coming through and through trees and things like that on the ground, that makes a difference. But I agree in the fact that when you're in the building looking out, this it reinforces that very clearly, that connection to nature because of those unobstructed views. So having a lot of light, controlled certainly with glare, but angling the building such that you can maximize that exposure to the natural elements. Not to mention that the building height being a little bit lower and having a significant green roof position for this project, the surrounding buildings will be able to, at some extent at the higher levels, be able to see some of that green space as well in an urban context, right? So, in a dense urban context like Roslyn, any green is a significant improvement. So, I think, the green roof position, just like Shalom just mentioned regarding looking out in that picture right there, I think says it all.
Thank you. Mr. Effio, I called you by the correct name this time, so yeah. Thank you.
No, I wanted to say that, I'm very pleased to see elements of biophilia in the design. Certainly light is important. We really focus on green space. It seems like you've done that on the 7th floor on the roof as well. Do you plan on putting trees on the roof? I guess is my first question. And then, my second maybe more of a comment is, the design that came out last week for the Amazon spiral really does a great job of incorporating green into the building. And I would say that's kind of like the bar that as residents of Arlington County, we're looking for in terms of biophilia is that kind of thing. And so I'd maybe ask if, make that comment and then ask, are you thinking about ways of expanding the green spaces in the building?
As far as placing trees on the roof of the building, they would have to be planted in planters, and you can only grow a plant so high in that context. But we are planning on having some planters up there with both a combination of low plantings as well as somewhat taller ones. We haven't designed quite to that level of detail yet, but we are planning on having taller plantings, trees at the 7th floor level at the bottom of the sky window there. We have a fairly large area there. It's about 60 feet wide, about in one direction, about 80 feet wide in the other direction, and that will have a grove of very light aspen-like trees at that level.
Yeah, and I would say we also want to be careful when we use other projects as precedent. When you look at the helix, it has that angle so it can capture rain as it's going around the building, because trees require significant amount of irrigation. And when you look at green roofs, it's kind of a sponge for stormwater management. The second, if we were to do something like that on the top roof, in lieu of managing stormwater, now we're introducing a lot of irrigation requirements. And since the footprint of the building is relatively small, we only have a certain limited area to collect water for irrigation. But to Shalom's point, I think the key is having that diversity where you can sprinkle in trees like this, where you get that dappled light effect, which is what biophilia at its core, I think, represents. But as you look on high roofs, you get into maintenance issues, additional irrigation requirements, the thickness of the roof and the structure, wind shear loads and all of that we want to make sure that we're operating in the context and the confines of the massing that we have on the building, and make sure we're balancing stormwater management and not creating an environment, a flat surface that requires a lot of extra irrigation to maintain vitality.
Yeah, point well taken. But I think at least in our commission, we definitely take we definitely see what's possible when we see new projects, and so we will continue to reference projects. So unfortunately, that's the reality. So
yeah, and I didn't mean it in that kind of way. I was just saying, every project is unique in terms of how it's designed, and like I said, the massing and the architecture behind what is potentially possible and what becomes a primary feature one way or the other. So I certainly hear you, and I we all want to continue to push the envelope, as it were, for what is possible.
Quick question just to confirm, on the 7th floor at the bottom of the sky window, those trees will not be in planters as envisioned, correct?
They will not be in planters, but they are on structure.
On structure, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Were there any other comments on open space? I would like to move to construction implementation then. If there's no comments on that, would the applicant be able to just, speak very briefly if there are any construction considerations that, we should be aware of that are outside the norm or anything non-standard?
Yeah, I guess I deferred to Matt. I guess the two things, Matt, that we may want to talk about are the method of demolition and then the timing of construction.
Sure. So as far as demolition goes, unlike the Holiday Inn site, we are going to be dismantling our building mechanically. We are right above the WMATA tunnel zone of influence that runs right under the east side of our building, and they do frown upon explosions over their tunnel. So it'll take about 3 months to take the building down mechanically. Actually, one other point that was raised during one of our Civic Association updates that I'll kind of briefly discuss here is construction worker parking in the neighborhood. Just want to let you know that while we are excavating and building the below grade portion of our building, we are planning to bring construction workers in from offsite so that they aren't parking on the streets. And of course, we will need to monitor and police those subcontractors that do try to break the rules. But that is something that we're planning on doing. And then once we start above grade construction, we'll be able to park in the garage. And then just as far as, general timeline for construction, we are purchasing the right of way around the building, and there are a lot of utilities that need to be relocated in that right of way before we can begin excavation. And with our current schedule, we're probably going to begin utility relocations around, call it second quarter of 2022. We'll bring down the building, we'll demolish it towards the end of 2022, fourth quarter 2022. And you can expect us to deliver first units around second quarter of 25 and be totally done with construction by the end of 25. And again, that assumes we're maintaining our current pace and schedule.
Thank you very much. I think that was a very helpful guidance. If there's no community feedback on that and not seeing any, let's go to community benefits. I think there will be a fair amount. We've already kind of touched on some of these subjects. I definitely want to, we've heard a lot from engagement feedback and also from tonight's meeting that, what an opportunity might be for some public art related to screening of that parking structure. I understand from the applicant's response to some of the public feedback that, that is something that's being looked into. So I certainly want to myself advocate for what an opportunity would be to kind of do something interesting with that screening element. Maybe that's, reflective of the location, reflective of Gateway Park being there, other resources in the area. I think that is a wonderful opportunity to kind of get some public art on site and also, appropriately screen that parking structure. So, are there any other comments from SPRC members? You can raise your little hands, or I'll just let it doesn't just have to be about the parking structure art. We're covering everything in the sustainability, affordable housing, anything else. I'm going to call on Rosemary because I know you had wanted to raise a comment on this topic earlier.
Thank you very much. Yes, with the type A units, those are fully accessible units that are the base is 2% of all the units. I don't remember hearing how many units are expected to be built on this site.
Ms. Ciotti, there are 424 proposed units on the site.
So 2% is the prerequisite mandate for fully type A units. And because it's close to Metro, we are asking the developers across the county when they come through to up that percentage voluntarily. We'd like to see 4% on site for type A units. And that all of the affordable on-sites, the percentage of those also be type A, fully accessible.
I think we can take that comment back. I don't know. I don't think we have an answer to that this evening. I will say, building on your question about affordable housing from earlier, at this time we haven't really gotten that far in the process with our negotiations with staff. Many projects provide a cash contribution towards AHIF because housing is so expensive and the county feels like it can utilize those funds better. But we see what's happened in other recent projects at the same time, and we are having further discussions with CPHD and housing staff as part of our community benefits package. And I think it's your comment about increasing that percentage from 2% to 4% for all units. We'll have to report back at next month's meeting.
Right. I look forward to continuing that conversation. I wanted to follow up on a previous conversation about when do you think you'll have rendering of what your front door will look like, the lobby? I'm particularly looking for a lobby that'll be at street level without ramps or steps.
Yeah, Jeff, could you put up that image that we had 3 renderings on it, and one of them was of the lobby from the sidewalk. It also had the retail storefront in it, I believe. So the image on the lower left you see there is this is preliminary, it's somewhat diagrammatic, but that is the entrance into the lobby.
So I can interpret that as being 0 threshold at ground level.
0, I'm not sure I understand what that
no
means.
steps, no ramp.
Oh, that's correct, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we'll continue the conversation maybe with Sarah or with staff to talk more about the percentage of type A units and if there are going to be any on-site affordable, what we can do about accessibility there.
Hi, Rosemary. Yep, I will definitely take your comments from tonight's meeting to our housing staff. And as Andrew said, we will continue to work on that. So we'll have much more information for you on that at the next SPRC meeting on March 4th.
I'm very appreciative. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Steinberger, I just wanted to say,
yes.
Jeff, I don't know if you can share that slide again with the community benefits. This is from our presentation, but just to let you all know, we have a series of community benefits, sort of soft community benefits, such as the implementation of the Roslyn Sector Plan. And then there's more hard community benefits like, direct contributions to the utility fund and transportation demand management plan and commuter services contribution. There is a base public art contribution amount as well. And then building onto what Commissioner Steinberger was talking about with, with the screens and things like that, that could also be a part of our community benefit package as well. So, Shalom, or I don't know if you want to talk about some thoughts that we've had recently. And I don't think we certainly haven't gotten to the point where we're ready to really share anything or commit to anything, but we've got some neat ideas that we're toying around with and other comments that we received tonight too, that we'll have to consider. So.
Okay, no, I don't have anything further to add to that, Andrew.
Okay.
So I'd like to make some comments on the county's behalf, just relating to that. So we have been working with, planning staff has been working with our public arts staff on this topic of screening the garage. Public arts staff is in full support of this. And in regard to Mrs. Prell's comment earlier about whether that would be a community benefit or not, we would, it likely would be, but they would receive density for it in this instance. But I think both staff is supportive of that. And it sounds like the applicant is also interested in looking into that. So I think that would be a good opportunity here. Ms. Prell also had a comment about the corridor of light. So I just wanted to address that real quick while we're talking about public art. So that was also brought up by public art staff. Phase 2 of the corridor of light project is actually very close to this site. Unfortunately, it is already constructed. So the timing wasn't quite right to get the closest proximity of that project to, in with this development in this site plan. So I think our county's choice would be to then have a contribution from the applicant within the community benefits package go toward the phase 3 of the corridor of light project, which is along the the Mead Street Bridge. So that's likely what we're looking at. Again, none of this is worked out in in full and is subject to change, but that's what we're thinking right now for public art.
Thank you very much. Before we go to, and we do have some more hands raised, we'll go to those in a moment. This is the moment when if you are a public speaker listening to this meeting and you would like to speak during the time of public comment, which will be the last about 10 minutes of the meeting, this is the time to email Olivia, who is in this meeting, and or put your name in the chat function and we will record a list of that and you'll be able to speak at the end. So ding, 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 do that now.
I don't have the chat function, and I need Olivia's email address.
Why don't you just announce your name real quick?
Bernie Burns.
Okay, Bernie Burns on the list. Thank you, Bernie.
Okay.
Mr. Foster, I saw your hand next.
Yes, also with the Parks and Recreation Commission, we submitted comments on the need for bird-friendly glass. And I was pleased to see that under applicant's response, apparently the applicant is taking most of this seriously, that there's the applicant is apparently looking at possibly bird-friendly glass on heights of 8 feet and 36 feet on the north elevation and at the corner of Lynn Street. We highly favor bird-friendly glass. I don't know really if this fits under community benefits or sustainability, but as even staff has pointed out, the county does have a green building bonus density. And one sustainability feature that is an option is bird-friendly glass. So I just wanted to put some chips in there for bird-friendly glass. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the applicant, would you like to respond further than what was in your
Sure.
presentation?
Yeah, I can say just something about that. You know, the guidelines for bird-friendly glass relate to the lower 38 feet from the sidewalk up to 38 feet in height. That's where the area of concern typically is. And we, of course, in the upper, I would say roughly 24 feet of the 38 feet, we have 2 levels of parking where we will have these decorative screens rather than glass. So our design actually addresses that in that way. And then below that, of course, we have retail. And we'll be very careful, obviously, to accommodate the needs of the retailers, along with this, concern for bird safety.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Guerin.
Thanks. Thanks, Sarah. I just wanted some clarification. I thought maybe I'd heard that we were going to consider using public art to screen the above ground garage as a community benefit. And I hope that's not the case, because my understanding of this is that we actually look for below grade parking, but that if we have to have above grade parking because it's very expensive or because the developer feels they need more parking, that it's really their responsibility to make sure that fits in. But perhaps I misheard. So if someone would clarify, I'd appreciate that.
I can make an effort to clarify. We are proposing using decorative metal screens to along both levels of the parking on all 4 sides of the building. That is part of the building cost, and it's not a cost that we associate with public art at all. To the extent that in addition to that, we work with an artist, say, to provide some treatment in addition to those screens, such as decorative lighting. Perhaps it could be an art light sculpture. It could be graphics. That is something we would consider as public art.
Got it. Thank you.
Very important question. Excuse me, Commissioner Guerin. Thank you. And I also wanted to go back to with regards to the bird-friendly glass. And Christy, correct me if I'm wrong on this. That would not actually be considered a community benefit. That's under sustainability.
They could receive density for it. It depends on how we work out the sustainability package. They are proposing LEED Gold, so if they do use the green building bonus incentive policy for site plan projects, bird-friendly glass is a priority credit which they can receive credit for, so they can get density for it.
But that's different than it being a community benefit.
They would receive credit for it as part of the community benefits package. So in exchange for them doing it, we would be giving them that additional density that they need to earn. So technically would be.
Ms. Proud?
Sorry there. Once again, back to the screening, and what my point was, we have a very large piece of public art, the Corridor of Light piece, which is just adjacent to this building. And it would be nice if somehow the screening was able to play off of that in a very synergistic way. My favorite piece of public art in Arlington is a cover for a screen for a garage, which is literally a block away at 19th and North Lynn Street, the Ned Kahn piece. Screening can be beautiful.
We agree.
I agree too. All right. Any other comments with regards to community benefits at this time? Rosemary and Terry, your hands are still raised, but if those are new comments, speak up. If those are from your prior comments, hands down, please.
I don't know where this goes. I have not seen anything about wind studies or about light studies. I assume those are being done. One of the issues we have in North Roslyn is we are creating wind tunnels between these tall buildings, and it's very unpleasant to walk down the streets.
We have done shadow studies, and I'm not sure whether we submitted those as one of our earlier submittals or not, but certainly we'd be happy to share the shadow studies. We've not undertaken any wind studies. We will not. We will be one of the lowest buildings along that stretch of the riverfront. So I don't imagine that we'll be, contributing or creating conditions which are significantly different than anything that exists there today.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you look at urban wind, and maybe I'm speaking out of term here, but it's a buildup of pressure, right? So when you have a really tall building and that force and that negative pressure on the other side of the building, so there may be some intangible benefit of opening it up in the core where you're breaking up that pressure, right? Because you've got that kind of opening in the middle that helps to alleviate that differential between one side of the building and the other. That actually could provide probably some benefit in that respect.
Thank you very much. Staff, I have a question, a follow-on for staff then. In what circumstances would a wind study be required?
That's a good question. I don't know that off the top of my head. I would have to get back to you. I don't think it's a requirement for this project, but I can certainly get more info for you and have that at the next SPRC meeting.
That would be great. I think that is information we would like to know, and for this project and as a general curiosity point. So thank you. All right then, anything else on community benefits at this time? If not, I would like to move, and this is so one last chance. Is anyone who from the SPRC, any SPRC representatives who had not had a chance to speak tonight, who would like to speak on anything? This is sort of a last call for those comments before we go to public comment. Mr. Effio, you have spoken already tonight, but I will call on you again.
Yeah, maybe it's in a different SPRC, but we haven't talked about the use of renewable energy on this project, and I was wondering if there's anything on that, or if it comes at a later SPRC.
Ms. Wallentage?
Hi, sorry, I'm having a little bit of connectivity issues. I can defer to the applicant if you want to hear what they are proposing, or are you asking about the requirements from the county side?
No, I mean, I know what the requirements are from the county side. I'm asking what's planned for this site.
Yeah, I'm happy to turn it over to the applicant. They can provide much more information on that than I can.
Yeah, this is Andrew again. Okay, so Jeff, you've got that image there, and Mike, I don't know if you want to chime in or Shalom want to chime in about what we're doing from a renewable perspective, or what conversations we've had internally.
Sure. I mean, I think at this point, again, a primary focus being green roof, and we certainly understand there's solutions where you can combine solar with green roof. But at this point, the predominant solution on the roof is green space. And in terms of on-site renewable, it's just something we'll continue to explore going forward. So there's no firm solution there or commitment thereof to do renewable. Again, with competing priorities on the roof space, it can be challenging, but we can certainly explore that as we move forward.
All right then. Any other comments before we go to public comment? Do we have anyone for public comment?
Yeah, I had one comment.
Oh, great. I'm sorry, Mr. Byrne. Olivia, do you put up the 2-minute timer now, or could you please?
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that. And no other public comments?
Mr. Byrne, your 2 minutes start as soon as Olivia says so.
Okay. Yeah, this is about landscaping. I realize you're having three different levels of landscaping, at the street level on Lee Highway, 7th floor, and the roof. I would like to make sure with the final landscaping plan, and I hope you'll agree, that these should have pollinated plants. I know you've mentioned that. The important thing here is don't put any grasses there, no Lyria rope. These should be exclusively pollinated plants. You can put them in beneath the trees. You can put them certainly on the ground level nearly on Lee Highway. They should also include milkweed for the monarch butterflies. There's one particular species monarch prefers, and that's Escalatus syriaca, A. syriaca. So please put these pollinated plants on every level, wherever you can squeeze them in, under the trees, etc. Also, make interaction with Alonso Abogados, who's the chief naturalist in the Department of Parks and Public and Natural Resources. He can advise you on what exactly are the best pollinated plants. Landscape architects don't know these. Very few people know that milkweed has different types, some which attract monarchs, others don't. As I say, A. syriaca is the thing you should plant. It would be nice to see the landscape plan. You probably won't be able to deliver the next site plan meeting, but just take it in mind. No grasses, nothing that's not a pollinator, because they'll just compete with the pollinated plants. And milkweed is very important. The county has a monarch pledge, which encourages the planting of milkweeds. So this should be an important element. It's not in the general biophilia guidelines, but in a separate the county board passed a monarch pledge 3 years ago. So that's basically what I have to say. Just make those pollinated plants and don't put grasses, don't put Lyria, put kind of the ground cover there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Byrne. I understand. I think there's 2 additional public commenters. Allie Henry from the Roslyn Bid.
Hi, everybody. Allie Henry from the Roslyn Bid. I just wanted to jump on to let you know we're here listening tonight. There's been a lot of great conversation, so thank you all for the thoughtful comments and feedback. It's really exciting to see this project kicking off, and just want to thank county staff as well as the JAG team for being so proactive, gathering community feedback early in the process and already starting to incorporate that into this design. So we're really excited to just participate, continue listening to everyone's great suggestions and feedback. And thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you very much. Are you yielding back your time? It sounds like yes. Okay.
I am.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rapetsky, is your hand raised to indicate you have a public comment?
It is, yes.
Okay, then Olivia, 2 minutes for Mr. Rapetsky, and you may start.
All right. Well, I just hope I'll try to keep this brief. I just wanted to sort of go back and reiterate Commissioner Slat's comments earlier about the 19th Street protected bike lane. We're getting future improvements on the northbound Lynn Street to hopefully make that unprotected bike lane there a bit better to get from Wilson and Fairfax north of 66. But there's no great option at all to get south from the MVT or the connections over to the bike facilities on the north side of 66 without getting crossing the sidewalk, which just doesn't work for everyone. Obviously, the on-street option is there for strong bicyclists. Sometimes I'm in that category, other times not. So having that connection on 19th would definitely be a step in that in the right direction, especially and I am forgetting which development was part of the modifications a little bit further south on Nash as well, which I think that could provide some nice connectivity for. So if there's a way for the applicant and staff to figure out a way to get that in there in the plans somehow, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I believe that is it for public comment. Thank you everyone for, Mr. Lewis, you're listed under presenters. Did you have a comment to make?
Hi, my name is Jordan Lewis. It's okay. It happens. It's a common issue. But I just wanted to say that I am with the Arts Commission and on behalf of the Public Art Committee as well. We support the direction the applicant is proposing to explore public art. And that is all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I will remember for next time that it is Ms. Lewis. So thank you. Mr. Ross, did you have a comment to make as well?
No, but thank you very much. Appreciate all the discussion.
Okay, wonderful. At this point, I am going to ask Commissioner Guerin to do a little bit of a recap on some of the items that we heard tonight, and then we will adjourn.
Great, thank you. Well, first, the items we heard tonight, and then also in the comments that we've received over time, in general, people really like this building. It looks interesting and exciting and different. So we're really grateful to see that. There's strong desire for universal design in terms of the major entrances to the building and any retail. So that's something that Ms. Ciatti can give more clarification on, but that's when she was asking about no steps, no ramps. Everyone uses the same accessible entrance to get in and out. People are happy with the bird-friendly glass, the changes to that, and there's lots of support for using beautiful screening for the parking, recognizing that you're within the parking ratios, and there's some concern about above-grade parking, but then also some within the neighborhood to make sure that there's adequate parking. So it's sort of a trade-off there. Similarly, having that above-grade parking might make it difficult to make a pedestrian connection through the site, but again, it's a trade-off on that. And then a lot of concern and desire for protected bike lanes in the area, and it sounds like that's an ongoing discussion, but want to make sure that that's recorded here. Some delight, I guess, with your including EV ready and EV capacity expansion with the building, but worry that maybe it's not enough given that our demand may be higher than what you might be seeing elsewhere, but still happy to see that. Note to those who are concerned about drop-off short-term spaces that DES does in fact assign those. And Park and Rec members want to see more than just connections to Gateway Park. They'd like to see perhaps a contribution in the community benefits. I think that's true of the community as a whole based on comments, and it sounds like that's something we may hear more about going forward since those negotiations continue. Concerns about planting and biophilic design and the green plantings, it was good to hear more about that. And then again, a representative from the Disability Committee, that's Rosemary, raised the concern that she has raised. This is fairly consistent, that when we're putting housing in near Metro, that we try to make sure we put in a significant number of accessible units. And I think that's probably a conversation you need to have with that committee and with staff directly. Questions were raised about whether there were light or wind studies and questions about renewable energy. And I think that about sums up the conversations that we had and the outstanding questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Ms. Walentish, is there anything else that you need me to do before I bid everyone adieu and send them on with their evening?
No, I don't think so. I think this has been a really constructive conversation tonight. So I thank everyone for providing their input, and you can look forward to hear some responses back from us on things that were a bit outstanding and follow-up items for March 4th meeting. And we'll have more info on the community benefits and project evolution. So look forward to that meeting.
Wonderful. And just as a reminder, that is March 4th. That's when we're expecting to have our second and final virtual SPRC for this project. And we look forward to seeing you all then and there. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.